Did you know the fashion industry is responsible for over 4% of the global greenhouse gas emissions? And it's not just a carbon impact. Water, chemicals, deforestation, textile waste, microplastics, and more are affected when a garment is made. Our guest is changing the supply chain to lessen the toll on our planet in two powerful ways by creating the first network of localized microfactories connected by a shared tech stack and by investing in startups refashioning global supply chains. Oh, this is going to be such a delicious conversation. You're going to love meeting her. It's Fab Female Founder Friday on the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And I'm so grateful that you carved out time to tune in because I know from personal experience what you're crawling through. And boy, does it help when you hear another founder's startup stories and founder journey stories, right? But more importantly, you're going to be able to take away some nuggets that will help you and your startup. That's right. By carving out this time to tune in, you're going to up your founder game. And as you do better, your startup will do better. A big yoo-hoo to the live viewers. Hi, everyone. And replay viewers and podcast listeners. You know how much I love that you are here tuning in and hearing our guests' wonderful insights and advice for your startup journey. If you're watching via a video, we're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Be sure to like the video because then it gets out and someone on your community will benefit from this conversation. You never know. That ripple effect is so important. And if you haven't done so already, please hop on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And please join the Startup Life Live meetup group. This way you'll get an announcement and links for every single show. You never know. I could have a guest on that's in your industry or an investor, someone that you want to grab those gems from right away to help your startup journey. A few Andelicious announcements before we get going today. It's all about sharing the knowledge that's out there. And one of my favorites, Arlen's Academy. She just uploaded, got the email yesterday. She just uploaded another round of amazing information for all of you founders. Everything you need to know about launching a successful business all in one place. And if you are fundraising, please hop on over to Scroobius, a human-first fundraising experience. Let me tell you, they help you prepare a video pitch, and they're going to help you make sure it's in the right order. So especially for you newbie founders who've never had to raise capital before, this is the community that you want to have holding your hand. And be sure to use a promo code Ande15 when you sign up with Scroobius. It's very affordable. Trust me. And plus you get that wonderful peer-to-peer support group because let's face it, who in your life really understands what you're going through, right? Than another founder. I mean, there's just no way. This is an experience that is, well, you can't even put into words someday. Sometimes you're popping the champagne, yay. And then like 45 minutes later, you could be crying in that champagne. And then at the end of the day, you could say, best day ever. It's like, yikes. It's amazing, but we wouldn't have it any other way because this is an experience that you will always win. So I am going to grab the wonderful artwork here, and I can't wait to share our guest with you. Talk about an amazing, phenomenal, fab female founder. It's Lisa Morales-Hellebo. She's a VC, seasoned entrepreneur, strategic futurist, and community builder. And Lisa has honed her skills for spotting and coaching winning teams from her 27 plus years working with startups to Fortune 500s on strategy and execution across branding, product development, and innovation. And she's disrupting the global supply chain paradigm, especially in the fashion industry, with her business Refashioned OS and her venture fund Refashioned. Clearly, Lisa is passionate about helping fashion tech and supply chain startups achieve industry adoption, growth, and scale. We're going to get all the details from this fab female founder who is changing the world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Morales-Hellebo. The crowd roars. I am so happy that you are here, especially Lisa, with the whirlwind travel you had. Share with everybody where you've been over the last few weeks. I mean, I can't.
Oh my goodness!
Take a nap right now thinking about it.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've been to London for Business of Fashion Voices, which was bonkers. It's totally unlike any other event I think I've ever been to or participated
Well,
in.
I have to ask why.
Because it is like Davos meets TED Talks meets a luxury sleepaway camp.
I'm really for that last part. Luxury sleepaway camp.
It's really Imran, CEO and founder of Business of Fashion, has cultivated the dream type of community and event that I aspire to have myself someday. It seemed to me like he just hosts his annual conference and invites the world's most creative, brilliant minds that he wants to become best friends with and wants to become best friends with each other. And we all get to hang out on Soho Farmhouse for 3.5 days in the English countryside. And you're having breakfast with Philip Lim or lunch with Malala and hanging out at the...
Like, how do you come down from that? And also, was that invitation only?
It is, yeah.
And so you were invited? How did they find out about you? Come on, that's a big get.
Well, one of our portfolio companies, actually, I was having lunch with the founder in the city months ago, maybe it was in late September maybe. And she said, oh my God, what you're doing with Refashioned OS is game changing. Like, oh my God, I would want to come work there if I didn't have my own company, but you should absolutely speak at Business of Fashion Voices. Do you know Imran? And I was like, no, I don't know him. And I would kill to speak at that event. And she gets on her cell phone. She's like, let me just text him. What? So yeah, she texts him, says that he should chat with me, and we scheduled a half-hour call. And in that call, he was taking notes. I just said, I don't know what we should talk about. And he said, tell me your story. And in that half hour, he said, my dear, you could give 6 talks, but here's the one that I think that you should focus on.
Which was what?
Which was localization of fashion demand chains and circular textile infrastructure. Within a couple of weeks, he said, yeah, you're going to give a talk and you're going to host one of the 5 salons in the evening.
Oh my gosh, Lisa. Yeah. Oh my gosh, folks, this is why social capital is so important at the end of the day, right? It's your conversation with someone that in your portfolio, so a company you had invested in, who had the connection. We're just so many degrees away from amazing opportunities like this. And you couldn't have dreamed that up.
No.
That could have even been on your bucket list.
Here's the best part. My birthday is November 25th. And so 4 days after my birthday, where I turned 49 this year, I was flying to London for like a Cinderella moment, going to this event, and had fashion designers dressing me and like, what?
Oh, we're all living vicariously through you. Thank you, Lisa.
This Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx who comes from seamstresses and pig farmers was like, who am I? Who is this? Who gets this life?
Pinch me. Yes. I hope people are filming because I'm going to need to look at this when we're done to just make sure that was me. Oh, thank you so much, Neil. Congrats, Lisa. Serendipity at its best. You're absolutely right. We love, love, love that. And hello to Brent in Ottawa, Canada, our diverse fan who's always reminding us that disability is innovation and a seat at the table is important and not as an afterthought, folks. Okay. You need to set the culture with your startups from day one, and diversity must be part of the equation. Oh my gosh, Lisa. And so, like, I mean, I know, so London, like, how did you even come down from that? But then you've been at several events since then.
Yeah, so I came back and thankfully my house was still standing because my teenage boys were left alone for a whole day. My husband was traveling as well, and I just needed 2 days of not speaking
Right.
and not, just silence. And unfortunately, fortunately, my boys are like, "Nice to see you, Mom." I'm gonna go out and at the gym and whatever. So I was left in silence with my dog.
Oh,
And then I had to get ready to pack to fly to San Francisco because my girlfriend Sandra Campos, who was the former CEO of Diane von Furstenberg, and after that the CEO of Project Vert, a 3PL, she messaged me. I think it was right before I was leaving for London. I don't recall. Everything blurs together, but said, "I'm hosting an event in San Francisco for Latina disruptors in tech. Will you come?"
oh yeah,
And I
you
said,
have to be there.
"Of course." So when is it? Oh, it's like 3 days after I get back from London. So I said, let me figure out the logistics, found that I could make it work with tickets, and I had to be back in time to get at least a couple hours of sleep before the next day, which was yesterday. I was hosting a day-long event in New Jersey for our factory partners for Refashioned
Oh,
OS.
oh
And
my
so, yes,
God.
I've
Lisa,
been
I tell you, you're ready. Folks, have you seen that meme where the person has their full body sweater and it's pulled up over their head? It's like you have to go into that introvert stage to regroup and recoup. And that's the best
Mhm.
gift that you gave yourself and everybody who was going to be hearing from you and connecting with you. And then here you are today. I am so honored to have you on the show to share your remarkable work in the world, because you are amazing. And I love, love, love your passion for shifting the fashion industry's supply chain paradigm. But you've been a business owner for quite a few years. And I just want to ask you, when you first stepped out and dipped your toe into the entrepreneurial world with a great company called Good Egg, what called you to even become an entrepreneur and
Woo.
give payroll, get that steady paycheck, say goodbye to that, and do this journey? And did you have role models growing up, or were you that person who was hustling in elementary school? Tell us a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I always wanted to do something creative that made money. And I didn't have any real role models of entrepreneurship because my mom was a homemaker and my dad was a teacher and then a principal in the South Bronx for like 37 years. But he would bring home computers and the Commodore 64 and Atari and Apple, the first Macintosh, and would bring home all this tech so we had access to technology. And I was always working, doing early programming on machines, because my dad knew he was excited about technology, and so we
Sure.
got excited about technology.
So you had a Fat Mac?
Yeah.
That's what they were called. They were these big
Uh-huh.
boxes, folks.
Yes,
They were just like,
with
and you
the
had these,
signature, with the
yeah,
signature inside it. Yes, of
and
all
these
the.
floppy disks.
Mhm. And so I was never really intimidated by technology, but I was more enamored with the ability to make something from nothing.
Yeah.
And that started early on with sewing Barbie clothes and sewing my own clothes because we didn't have the resources for everyone in the family to go and buy clothes. We had to sew our own. And
I love.
selling Barbie clothes long after it was probably socially acceptable. Thank goodness I have a sister who's 5 years younger than me. And so I still had an excuse to continue to sew Barbie clothes. And I remember I also made for her a Fraggle doll. Do you remember
Yeah,
Fraggle Rock?
absolutely.
She really wanted a Fraggle doll and we couldn't afford one. And so I pulled through all of the scraps of fabric, and for some reason we had red fun fur and all kinds of felt and everything. And I didn't know how to make patterns. I just kind of intuitively knew how to see shapes and structure. And I made a Fraggle that we still have to this day that looks exactly like the Fraggle Rock main character.
Oh my gosh. I love that, something fierce. And of course, it is when, out of necessity, right? That's when innovation happens and a
And
lot of really great creativity.
so I applied to Carnegie Mellon because it was the only proper university that wasn't just a fine arts school. And I knew that I wanted to do something creative that made money. And it was design, graphic design, and really design thinking, which I applied to creative problem solving throughout my career. And the reason I first started Good Egg Design is that after, I think it was at the time, 2005, I was pregnant with my first son, and I had moved back from Norway with my husband, and was working at a nationwide retail chain called the Healthy Back Store. And the C-suite basically said, we know that we need you more than you need us. You've helped to scale our chain, at around 10 additional stores in less than a year because of the revenue your whole new department was driving through doing the first omni-channel campaigns. So yeah, you're probably going to start an agency when you go out on maternity leave. Would you like your first customer? And I was like, okay.
Oh my
So
God. I love it when owners, and especially like a franchise, have enough vision and acceptance to say, we're not losing her. So whatever terms she wants to play at, we're in.
so yeah, I had an agency called Good Egg because not only that CEO, but everyone I had worked with throughout my career, as soon as I was out on leave, were reaching out to me saying, oh, Ogilvy screwed up this thing, or Razorfish didn't know how to drive conversion. Can you please, please, please help us? And I just said, I made a human being. Can you give me a couple of months? And they all of it was word of mouth. So I said, well, it must be because they see that I'm a good egg and they want to, work with me. So Good Egg Design is what I called it.
Oh, that is so great. And, look, this is what happens. Talk about serendipity. Neil used to work at Mattel on the Barbie brand.
Oh
How,
my goodness.
how great
I
is
worked with Hasbro in my career. I actually redesigned the Easy Bake Oven website. I think it was in 1997. And it
wow.
was the first. So back then, websites for girls in particular were blocks of HTML text and maybe an image box here or there. And the boys' websites were starting to get really graphic and interesting. And I was pissed, as a woman. So I was really excited that Hasbro asked us, my agency that I was working at the time, to design the Easy Bake Oven website. And I thought, oh my God, I absolutely used Easy Bake. I love the brand. And I saw it as an opportunity to create a visually compelling, graphic, engaging website for girls because there wasn't anything at the time. And I guess I did such a good job that the creative director at Hasbro reached out to my boss and said, who designed this? We weren't trying to promote Easy Bake at Toy Fair, and it got more buzz and PR than any of our other products. So we need to give this person more work. We got the Monopoly token vote. They hadn't added a new token in 50 years to the game. And here I was 2 years out of college, managing directly the client account with Hasbro, doing a lot of doing all of the design, some of the coding, managing the dev team, outsourced
Oh
ThingWorld
my gosh.
objects that we were integrating with, making sure that, I FTP'd all the files directly to the server the night before and told them you needed a dedicated server. This is going to crash. Sure enough, we had 4 million hits a day and it crashed. And they finally put it on a dedicated server
But
because
what
it
was the
was
new
being
token?
promoted.
What was,
Oh God, I think it was the Sack of Money. It
oh
was a long time
gosh.
ago. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
Sack
yeah.
of Money, a biplane, and I forget the last one.
No,
But we had them racing each other as votes were coming in. You'd see the icons moving across to the finish line. And,
Oh,
you know, that wasn't, again, in 1998, I think that was. There weren't a
oh
lot
my.
of sites that were doing
Are
really
you kidding?
beautiful.
People were still saying website. I mean,
Yeah,
I had a .com that I launched in '98. So I know folks were still just, finally getting on board and finally letting go of, the trifold marketing piece and doing their websites. But my gosh, to be such a revenue driver because of the strategies and tactics you put into place on design. Wowza. So I'm trying to figure out, how did this shift to your incredible commitment and passion for supply chain? I mean,
yeah.
and especially in the fashion industry. Yes, I get that while you were making Barbie's clothes for yourself and then for your younger sister, that you had an idea of what was involved, right? The fabrics and getting them there. But why were you compelled to dive in and solve this problem and have it become your North Star?
Yeah. So I'm sure there's going to be some great psychological white paper someday on all of the reasons that fashion like has been my thing that I just can't shake throughout my life and career. And it probably has a lot to do with the fact that in the 80s, there were no industry players that looked like me, and the beauty standard wasn't accepting of people that looked like me until J-Lo really became like, oh, on the stage, and everyone was saying how gorgeous she was. And the same people that literally were spitting on me on the bus to give me a shower because you're so brown and dirty. What are you? Were then asking me out because J-Lo was like making it hot to be Puerto Rican. And
Well, and folks, you may, if you're old enough to remember, I remember when she was on the Rosie O'Donnell show and she was really like owning proud her booty, right?
oh
And
yeah.
she's like, come on, this is the best
Mhm.
part of being a Latina. And, and all of a sudden, boom, booties became really great. We left that flat,
Absolutely.
no bottom look behind.
Yeah, and now we have these gorgeous goddesses from Beyonce and Rihanna to Cardi B and
Oh,
oh
and
my,
Lizzo, come on. I don't know if you
oh
saw
my
her in the
God, yes.
People's Choice Awards. I mean, but she just gets out there and she talks about how she just had to learn to really accept her big, beautiful black
Uh-huh.
goddessness, right?
Yeah, so that has always been like my obsession, and I was fortunate enough to get into tech and translate doing something creative and making money into creating something from nothing with my hands of sewing things to code and
And
architecting systems. And
I just love that because you started off the conversation about how you loved using creativity, and creating and making money together. And especially for women, that is not always tied together. And we can look
Mhm.
at the thread throughout your entire career to the point where it's supply chain hits the road and you're looking around going, oh, this won't do.
Yes. So I went out to Silicon Valley during the first dot-com boom after I had been employee number 20, manager number like 3 at a content management software company that I helped scale to 150 people and exit within a year at the peak of the first dot-com era. I was like,
Which,
oh, the
which
mothership
folks,
is
I got to
calling
tell
me.
you, and if you diversified those funds at that time, bingo. If you held on to them, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So going to Silicon Valley during the first dot-com boom, it was
Yeah.
like the mothership was calling me home. And I moved cross country. Actually, IXL moved me across country. And 3.5 months later, this company shut down globally. And I was now on the other side of the of the country
Boy, is
with
that a
zero
classic.
contacts in probably one of the worst areas to be an out of work creative director than New York, that you could spit and hit a creative director in San Francisco at the time. So I started going to tech job fairs. And because I could do HTML and PHP and JavaScript and like, but I wasn't like a back end engineer or a full stack engineer.
Yeah.
But I went to these tech job fairs and I somehow convinced Alan Drano, who was working with Jim Margraf, who is the founder of Leapfrog Technologies, the children's learning toys.
That's right.
So Alan was working with Jim at Jim's new company called Ubiquity, and he's like, I wasn't looking for you today, but you have to come back and meet Jim. He's going to want to work with you. And I went back and met Jim, and we spoke for like, I don't know, 5 hours. And he's like, yeah, you're hired. Tell me what your job is. And so I worked with them at Ubiquity for all of about 2.5 weeks before the parent company. It was the major .com implosion at the time.
Everybody was acquiring, right?
Yeah, so that company, I was only there for like 2.5 weeks before the parent company pulled all funding. I was like, shit, now I'm out of work again.
Such a rocky time, everybody. I mean, seriously, assets and liabilities is what you were doing.
I knew how to hustle. And so the creative, somebody I worked with at IXL was now at a Procter & Gamble Skunk Works project that was spun out of P&G to see if we could pioneer the space of mass customization, personalization, and on-demand one-of-one micro-manufacturing across cosmetics, skincare, hair care, and fine fragrance in 1999. And I was like, oh my God, I would kill to work at this company. How did you get in as creative director for web? And so he's like, you know what? You're out of work. Let me see if I can get you in to interview for art director under me. I was like, yes, please, I'll take it. So I came in and worked at reflect.com. Within a month or so, I re-architected the skincare line, the user experience, the branding, the marketing, the everything. And skincare sales nearly quadrupled within a month. And so they gave me his job. They fired the creative director for web and gave me his job. And
Thank you for getting me in the company.
And then I was soon, the CEO said, do whatever Lisa says, let her butt her nose into anyone's department. And I came up with the first virtual personal shopper. Based on data, after a user created one product, we could algorithmically generate an on-the-fly product and push it through a macromedia generator to create a custom graphic for their email with an image of a product just for them that didn't exist till they clicked through to purchase it. Again, this is 1999, folks.
Yeah, and let me just say, user shopper, it was dial up.
Yes. So all of the things, our engineers at the time were like, that's not possible. I was like, isn't it though? We have the data, we can extract a hex value, and Macromedia Generator can create on the fly graphics. And they were like, give me a minute. And they went back and figured out. And so that is my sweet spot. I love pushing the envelope and creating things that have never existed before and challenging the status quo into saying, but why? It's not impossible. It's mission really hard, mission really difficult, but not mission impossible.
I like that. Mission really hard and really difficult, but not mission impossible.
Yes.
Perfect. And can I just congratulate that CEO who said, whatever Lisa says goes. When you are able to generate that kind of revenue with your head, like the way you did, because sometimes we calculate those numbers, folks, revenue per head. Oh my gosh, of course he was all over you and just said, please, what else can I do? But not many CEOs can do that. Not many CEOs have that vision and that ability to say, you know what, she sees on the horizon what we can't, go for it. Mm-hmm. And wow. So now you're saying, okay, I'm seeing all the parts and pieces in this particular consumer brand line. Where was the segue when you started looking at manufacturing?
Yeah. So while I was there, after doing the virtual personal shopper for one-of-one products, I then started doing whole cosmetic sets. And that didn't exist till you click through to purchase it. And then I was like, wait, we have brand partners like Ann Taylor, Old Navy, Gap. Like, why don't we create outfits to go with the cosmetic sets for each user? And everyone was like, what is this witchcraft? And I was just a 26-year-old kid having the time of my life playing with user experience and data and systems and creating the way that I wanted to be sold to. And it was fun. And so at the age 26, I got to present to the board, including A.G. Lafley, global CEO of P&G. and presented everything that Ogilvy had done for like $30 million on one side of the table and everything we did in-house now with startup scrappy like budget. And he came and shook my hand after the board meeting, AG, and said,
Holy.
congratulations, we finally have a brand here. And I was like, oh, clouds parted, angels sang. It was still a highlight of my career and my life to have this icon shake my hand at age 26.
Well, and also to be validated. Let's go back in time, right? In the home that you grew up with, the kind of bullying and challenges that you had, to take your smarty pants as a woman, as a Latina, and have someone come up and acknowledge you for your contribution and validate that you are exceptional when it comes from the head of a consumer brand like Procter and Gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just would have said, okay, I'm good. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you. Where do you
So
go from there?
yeah, at that time, the CEO, like it was the massive implosion, and Reflect even was having layoffs, and the CEO said, "Can you please tell me that you're going to stick around?" And I said, well, I did start dating this Norwegian who asked me if I wanted to move to Norway. So, and he said, well, please, please, please stick around. And I said, well, can you guarantee that I will still have a job here in like a year? He's like, well, there's no guarantees. And I said, well, then I think I need to go to live in Norway because who gets to do that? I
Right.
can make an awesome, great job anywhere, but I get to go live in another country with this guy that with total hot, fun summer fling Norwegian surfer who's inviting me. So yeah, I left.
Woohoo! And I'm 27. Why not? And by the way, I've been bounced around with all these companies. I feel more of a guarantee going to Norway than I do with one of you.
Exactly. So I lived in Norway for 3 years and I'm fluent in a useless language. And 6 months after I got there, he proposed, and we got married 16 days later at City Hall, and then had our wedding with the family in Mallorca, Spain that summer.
Oh,
And this January, it'll be 20 years.
oh, Lisa. I'm so happy you went to Norway with the hot
Uh-huh.
surfer dude.
Exactly. So I have been obsessed with customization, personalization, and on demand for my
Yeah.
entire career. And then when we moved back to the States, that's when I worked with the Healthy Back Store, started my agency, got really frustrated working, even though I was working as an agency of record as my little me and one junior designer out of my basement, agency of record for Coca-Cola. We redesigned the global e-commerce site. We worked with the World of Coke. We had the highest click-through and converting emails for all of the agencies that Coca-Cola worked with worldwide. I knew this because I became friendly with Yes Mail, the account manager who worked with all of the agencies and he was like, yeah, your click-through and conversion is bonkers. So yeah, that was the next step. But working with all these brands, out of my agency, I got really frustrated that nobody was really pushing the envelope. I was doing really cool things that were having an impact and
For
converting,
their
but
bottom line.
yeah, but I ultimately, in my gut, I like making something from nothing, something that has never existed before, and nobody was really enabling that. And
And
so
certainly not for the good of the planet.
no. So in my sleep, I have these really vivid creative dreams, and my husband will even nudge me and be like, you're dreaming too loud, get up and write it down. So I architected a contextual search engine for fashion in my sleep and patented it like 4 months later, and then did the user experience, and then realized I don't know how to start a company. I've worked at startups, didn't know how to build a team and raise capital and all that stuff. So I was in DC at the time and reached out to the DC tech community, and they were super supportive of female founders and invited me to speak in front of 1,000 people, their monthly meetup. I presented 5 minutes before my beta was done. And like
As
right.
Lisa often does.
So I get on stage, I'm like, I hope it works. And my company, Shopsy, was born basically that night. It was, I got up and I showed, here's an outfit, 5 items, a dress, a bag, shoes, and 2 accessories. And it's almost $5,000. You can apply, you can lock in, say, the dress, and then items under 100. And the algorithms would cull through 32 trillion possible permutations and serve up the top 5 item results now with your new variables as a photo collage of the look with the look total underneath. And that was your search results, because that's what I wanted to exist. Polyvore had existed, and they were creating these photo collages, but there was no algorithms behind it. I said the future of search is context, and seeing everything in a specific context, and then learning the context for Lisa versus Ande versus whoever, and serving up recommendations that are actually adding value rather than just trying to sell me something. You're giving me a value for my dollars. And so I did that, and the outfit came up and looked barely discernible because fashion gets knocked off at every price point. The look total was now, I think, $350.
Beautiful. Boy, do I love
And
that.
everyone
Something
in the
fierce.
crowd gasped audibly, simultaneously. I was like, ooh, that's something. And then
Excellent feedback right away.
Yeah, people were shouting, how'd you do that? I'm like, complex algorithms and universal taxonomy. And as soon as I got off stage, I had investors saying, are you raising? How much are you raising? I'm like, oh, I guess I'm raising. I need to get a team. And the DC tech community convinced me to apply to Techstars. And so I'm like a mom at this point and tinkering with some algorithms and data in my basement. I'm like, that's for kids, 22-year-old boys that can live on their parents' couches and eat ramen noodles. I've got a mortgage and a son and a husband. And like, that's not for people like me, but they convinced me and I applied and I got in to Techstars Boston. And through that program, I realized that VCs won't admit what they don't really know, and they didn't know anything about the fashion industry. They thought they did. They were more than happy to mansplain to me why my contextual search engine should buy inventory to be more like Nasty Gal. And I'm like, wait, but would you tell Google to buy inventory? Because that seems like a dumb business move to me. So I realized that there was this massive opportunity around the fashion industry data and specifically supply chains. And I was working on the universal data standards for supply chains of fashion through this contextual search engine. And there's a $3 trillion global industry with a preponderance of female founders that VCs don't get and are deploying capital in really silly areas that aren't going to be the big winners in the space. And I'm looking around going, wait, if they don't get it, who's investing? I'll take it. And so unfortunately, I ended up shutting down that company. And the day after I pulled the plug, I got a call from ASOS, head of global innovation, saying, what happened? You made something we've never seen before. And I said, shut up. I applied to Techstars to try to get to people like you. I had a lot of dum-dums telling me that I should change my business to a traditional e-commerce play. And yeah, we're fully dissolved. So instead of going into founder depression, I founded the New York Fashion Tech Lab, the first fashion tech accelerator, partnered with the C-suite of all the major brands and retailers. And I thought, you're welcome, industry. I solved it. You can now invest in the supply chain infrastructure and innovations that will actually drive meaningful revenue and long-term stability for your companies. But I learned they weren't doing the hard things either. And so I left after the first cohort to study the apparel supply chain on my own dime for a year to figure out how to disrupt them.
Yeah.
And that's where I made the leap.
Oh my gosh, Lisa, I just feel like I've just watched this great documentary. This amazing story. I love this journey and where you got today. And this is what happens for so many folks. A lot of times the vision is so out on the horizon. I'm married to one of those. He's been fired from many companies because he predicted what was going to happen in renewables, and they're like, "Oh hell no!" And it all came true. And so I understand, and the fact that you're absolutely right. Well, of course, we all know that until we have quite a few VC funds that look like you, right, and are writing checks, all right, that look like you, it's going to be very difficult to truly fund and get that big institutional fund money as well. But you saw a way to make this disruption happen because, folks, just in time, okay, just in time manufacturing, just in time supplies, you need to turn locally. And this is how we help the economy, but more importantly, the planet. So could you talk a little bit about that, Lisa? How you're bringing that vision together in two ways. Of course, you're such a tech goddess. So of course you have an OS, Refashioned OS. Everybody go visit the website. You'll get all the scoop, follow it everywhere. But also what I love is that simultaneously you said, well, I'm going to have to fund these people that I'm running into because the opportunity is amazing that only I can clearly see, but also, they need the funds to get to that next level until time catches up and people get it.
Yeah. So the thesis that I arrived at after my year of study was audio.
We're laughing. Mia Voss is in the house, everybody. She says, hi, Andy, me too. Audio version of an amazing documentary. What a journey. Oh my gosh. And, if I can just take a minute before you start your story, whenever Mia Voss swings by, the audience knows, the community knows, we have to promote her. A phenomenal podcast, shit we don't talk about, with Mia Voss. Nobody goes into the deep topics like Mia in such a beautiful way. Hop onto Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you tune in. It'll be worth it. All right. Back to you, Lisa.
So my thesis that I arrived at after my year of study, because I have a design thinking degree, I had to visualize it, and I made a deck of my thesis and findings and started sharing it with all the C-suite executives that I now knew at all the major brands and retailers. And I think it was Ed Lamb at Li & Fung. He was the global CFO for Li & Fung at the time that said, my dear, this is absolutely what's needed. It's the future, but the industry is not going to do it. And I was like, but why? Well, what you're proposing requires collaboration, and the industry just won't collaborate. And I said, okay, well, if they're not going to do it, I have to do it. So my thesis was localization is the only thing we should be putting all of our time, energy, and resources into if we want to, continue existing on planet Earth. And for me, that was extra important now that I had two boys and really want a planet to exist for them. So localization I define as really two things. It has to be the marriage of demand chains, that is a distributed collaborative network of vertically integrated factories that are producing small batch just in time and eventually fully on demand post-purchase. And that means your volume then shifts from your finished goods, which now can be a unit of one, to your raw materials. And your raw materials can become our post-consumer textile waste, our old clothes, of which we are literally drowning in.
Yes.
It's the US produces 4 times the textile waste of any other country in the world. We are the assholes that are the reason every single person on this planet is now consuming about a credit card's worth of plastics every week in microplastics. That's right. It is because the majority of our textiles and clothing are made from oil, PET. Your polyester, your blends are all leaching microplastics every time you wash them. It goes into the water streams that are now in our food, in our mammals, in our plants, in our rainwater. And they've even found microplastics in our arteries. If we can't get rid of cholesterol, folks, how are we getting rid of microplastics?
Oh my gosh, that's forever.
Yes.
In the arteries. Oh my gosh.
They've found them in umbilical cords in the womb.
There we go, folks.
So that's when I said, this is the only thing. This is what I was put on this planet to solve for, because if not me, who? Like nobody's weirdly obsessed with this industry the way that I am. And nobody else has been trying to solve for the systems and the data and the hard things of collaboration. I think collaboration is an inherently female skill because we have to collaborate. Looking back at just, nature, we are having to nurture and gather and cook and defend the homes and all the things. We do that through collaborations. And if
Sure.
you want to go fast, like Silicon Valley, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you need a village. And I knew that it would take a woman to lead this change.
Okay, wait, I
And
just have to stop for just a quick second because everybody, you know that that is a stitch that on a pillow moment. Here we go. Big round of applause for Lisa. Seriously, and the way you say it, it has just another depth of meaning to it. Yes, do what Silicon Valley does, but when you want to go far, get the community, get the
Mhm.
collaboration. Oh,
and I realized that the supply chains really, it's an EQ problem to solve. And Silicon Valley hasn't really excelled at that, shall we say. Hello, Elon Musk. You know? And yeah, so I thought this is a critical thing. It's going to take years of moving the chess pieces to get the right players aligned. So I need to start like yesterday. And I've had so many people telling me, Lisa, you could be making millions working at XYZ company. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah,
yeah, get out the eye roll.
I
Please,
made
Lisa.
crazy money before, but no amount of money is going to save my children or their children's children on this planet.
And
So
and
I
also, who else is going to squirrel down into it? Who
know.
else is going to pull on all those threads, gather all those nuts, do all the things that are
Right.
hard, but that you've been prepared to do? We just heard your documentary leading up to this point. You have a remarkable background, ideally suited for this really hairy, audacious idea.
Absolutely. And then sharing my vision with the industry and admitting what I don't know. That also is something that Silicon Valley doesn't do really well, admit what they don't know. Coming at this with humility and finding the right experts to
Yeah,
be on my team.
that's
I am
right.
humbled by the seasoned professionals that are on the Refashioned OS team with me. Jeffrey King has 40 plus years engineering apparel factories around the world. And he was part of the team that designed the Gerber Innovation Center in New York City, one of the first microfactories where you can walk in and have 2 photos taken to get your measurements, pick what you want to design, a dress, a button down t shirt, pick your neckline, your sleeve type, your print, see it rendered, and hit print and watch it go to the waterless, non toxic digital printer, cure into the fibers through the low heat curing machine, digitally cut the textiles, and then send a digital bill of lading to the Juki digital sewing machine where it resets the foot pedal and stitch type. So the seamstress just needs to go zip, zip, zip in about 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh. And not only that, folks, that's going to be something that will fit you so well that you will wear it year after year after
Mhm.
year, which makes it sustainable, not something you buy for
Exactly.
$10 at TJ Maxx and end up throwing out.
Absolutely. So uh, when I met Jeff and I asked him to join my team, I've one of the things I've learned as a founder is you get 0% of what you don't ask for. Wishes and ponies are great, but everyone would ride if wishes and ponies came true. So I asked him, Jeff, would you be interested in joining my team to help me really deploy my vision? And he said yes. And he's been working with me and Eric Mumford, my co-founder, for the past almost 3 years now. And then Bob Leinberg, I met about a little over a year ago. And this gentleman is OG, basically built the entire US textiles industry starting in the 70s for Dow and then went to work at BASF.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
he started his own textiles company that brought Cortals, one of the largest UK textiles companies, into the US market and brokered the sale of Tencel Lyocell to Lensing.
Oh
This
my
guy
gosh.
is
Like this guy,
a baller, you know,
totally OG, big time, goat for sure. And
everyone knows him. And he adopted me as the daughter he never had within our second time meeting at a 3.5 hour lunch. And he said, "My dear, you are going to help me reclaim my legacy that China stole from me. What do you need?"
oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Hold on, everybody. I'm having a super Andy-licious moment. I mentioned earlier how, you are uniquely qualified. It's because of who you be and what you have learned and done in your lived experience that brought you to a place where someone like this says, you can help me get my legacy back that China stole from me. I just like my goosebumps are crying. It's so beautiful. Oh
So,
no, this
yes,
is
the
thank
team,
goodness you set up the platform, but this is you're giving everybody this opportunity. You're the conduit, you're the collaborator, you're the facilitator.
we are the orchestrator. And
Yeah.
we've only raised very little capital in a pre-seed to get to where we are. We're getting ready to scale through existing US infrastructure who Bob and Jeff helped bring to the table, and Mark Damschroeder, our in-house legal counsel, who everyone's like, why does a startup have in-house legal counsel? Well, because collaboration requires great contracts and a lot of them.
Yes.
So again, he had 14 years at Caterpillar as in-house legal counsel, helped scale Otterbox from 100 million to 1.6 billion, and he's
Yeah.
our legal counsel.
Thank you for
So
getting because folks, you know how Andy I'll talk to him about myself in the third person because I say this so often. Number one person on your dream team is your attorney
yes.
because they
So
protect you and the company and everybody who's playing.
and Mark is the first lawyer that I've ever worked with that says, well, what's the business objective? And lawyers are most always like, cover your ass, but no, let's figure out how to achieve the business objective amongst all these.
Oh my gosh. So, Neil, this is wonderful. He says, I have to bounce. This is so great. I hope to follow up with Lisa later on fashion, sustainable sourcing. I'm making backpacks in China, which no longer makes sense. Darn tootin', Neil.
Absolutely. Would love to chat with you, Neil. This year, we are going to be scaling through our existing US infrastructure partners, fiber to finished goods, circular textile called Evernew, New Cycle. It is the only globally patented, scalable, ready to scale circular textile where you can take old post-consumer waste.
Yep.
They break it down to using chemistry into a pulp where they sort the poly or any other blend from the cellulose, cotton, plant-based fibers, and take that pulp that can be now extruded into a filament. And in the extrusion process can be imbibed with new properties like strength and tenacity, moisture wicking, temperature control, whatever. And that fiber can then be spun, dyed, knit, woven, cut, and sewn, and go through this reclamation process and regeneration process 5 times before it can be biodegraded into the soil. And so we're scaling this in the US, the first in
Thank
the world to have this, not only this technology, but this scaled infrastructure in the largest consumer market.
Thank
Boom.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Because, our current president, Biden, has been really about bringing manufacturing back to the US. Well, you're bringing it at a whole new visionary level. So I would like to say that there are some great government contracts that would be
Woo!
very happy to
Reach
help
out
support.
to me.
Yes, we have to do that because, it falls into the renewables. It really does. It falls into John Kerry's, climate crisis, ambassadorship. And there's, $1 billion, or maybe two, I think I know, with the DOE, right? For companies like you to give you good terms or even grants to do what you're doing, because not only you're bringing jobs home, you're to the community, local, right? So that Chicago can have its hub and Miami its hub, and everybody can have its hub, and people are employed and the planet is taken care of. This, folks,
And
this is so
existing
important.
companies can stay in business.
Talk
I've
about that.
personally met with factory owners of textile mills that have been in business for 150 years in this country. And the first time Bob and I went to visit them, it was kind of a dejected, like, we aren't really focusing on scaling and new things for the future because there isn't anything new. And we're competing against commoditization of these fibers that you can get anywhere in the world. And I said, well, but wait, we have your future. And so a few months later, they flew their team to meet with Eric and Bob at a conference in the Carolinas, North Carolina. And they flew their team members out there specifically to say, oh my goodness, Evernews news cycle would help us stay in business for another 150 years and give us a differentiator that no other infrastructure on the planet has currently.
Oh my gosh. You know, we have, I mean, in my backyard is Merrimack Valley, Lowell, Lawrence, Massachusetts. This was the textile hub 150 years ago. You know, so you're talking there, you know, so many of them dissolved. We have the beautiful mills to look at, but nothing going on. But you're singing their song, you're giving them, you're right, life back into their body. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So the collaboration part, and it was, you know, your Smarty Pants tech capability saw how you could do that using a tech stack with Refashioned OS, right? Get the collaboration, get people talking. Here's how we're going to make that work. You gave them the hub in order to do all that. Talk a little bit about Refashioned Ventures, because like, as if you don't have enough going on, 2 teenage sons, a husband, all of these things. I mean, it's solving a world problem, because you also have the world supply chain group happening. Now you a venture fund. Oh my gosh, everybody needs to sign up. What's the minimum investment?
So our rolling fund on AngelList, we can take checks from anyone that's an accredited investor. If you do angel investments, you can invest in our fund.
What's a minimum?
The minimum is 25K.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. We call it as 6,250 every quarter. So it's spread out over a year.
Excellent.
Because every quarter is its own fund, and we want you to be diversified. In 16 months, we've done 28 deals, and our very first portfolio company investment was oversubscribed by almost 40% for their next raise. We have one deal we did that in 10 months has 5x'd. Every single portfolio company that has raised their next round since we first invested has been oversubscribed. So even though this is a crazy environment for raising capital, it's not for our companies, because we know what is meaningful innovations to drive not only supply chain stability, agility, resiliency, redundancy, and insight, but these are real companies that are driving the future of business on our planet. The world's entire global GDP of $100 trillion runs on supply chains.
Absolutely. I can see the graph in my head, for crying out loud, Lisa. Oh my gosh. I don't want this to come to an end, because I have like 90 million more questions to ask you. I'm going to have to do a part 2 on that for sure. How do you choose applicants? Because I know lots of founders listen to the Startup Life Live show from around the world, and they're solving problems in their neck of the woods. And if they're in this category of supply chain and fashion tech, what is the criteria you look for?
Yeah, so the fashion supply chain is just the lens that I look at the world through, which is handy because the fashion supply chain touches 1 in 6 people that are employed on this planet. It touches pretty much every other vertical, from finance to real estate to farm, agriculture,
Right.
chemistry, etc. But our fund is across all supply chain. And so we have 4 categories that we invest across. There's data and AI, so analytics, the sequential decision analytics, and artificial intelligence. There's advanced materials, regenerative fibers like Evernews News Cycle. Unfortunately, we didn't get them in our portfolio because we didn't have our fund in time, but we have invested in companies like Simply Fiber, which was the very first deal that I led. The founder was a former head of design at Vera Wang, and she left Vera, she said, because she met me. Before meeting me, she said, I didn't know there were any VCs that cared about anything that wasn't just software. And so she is pioneering a proprietary process to take a pile of natural fibers and using her natural chemistry to go to a finished garment without needing to spin yarn, knit, weave, cut, or sew. And it's just pile of fibers, 3D printed or molded garment with structure and softness and breathability. And because you're not creating a yarn, you don't, or having to have fixtures or even stitching, you can dissolve it into its fibers again and reconstitute it into something else over and over
Oh my
again.
gosh. Can I take a moment and just share your portfolio with everybody real
Oh,
quickly?
yes.
Oh my gosh, that would be so great because, folks, this is just to give you a quick idea of what's going on in this incredible company. And I know here in Boston, we have great innovation like this. And so it's so important to see. But let me just scroll down so you can see there's perspective. Oh my gosh, OmniChain, YZ. These are
I
just,
just met the founder of YZ in San Francisco in person for the
oh,
first time. We've invested and we've met over Zoom, but I just met her a couple of days ago in person for the first time.
oh, you hugged in real life.
Yes.
And then
Lime Loop is a sustainable, everything you need for sustainable shipping, from sustainable and recyclable packaging. And they have an embedded RFID tag that allows you to get data about that black hole from when a consumer receives your package to what they decide to keep versus put back in the package and send back for returns, how many times they might take something out of a package and put it back in, all that data captured.
that is serious consumer behavior data. And you
Uh-huh.
build
Build
stock.
stock. This is a construction B2B materials marketplace.
Gosh.
And she's another Latina founder. Sortile, another Latina founder.
Yay.
PhD, mind you. She has created a handheld optical fiber sensing device that can go on any textile and tell you the exact fiber composition, even if it's
Oh
a
my
blend,
gosh.
and put that data on chain. I love our portfolio. So it's across
It's
advanced materials, advanced manufacturing, advanced logistics, and data and AI.
Oh my gosh, everybody. So, we've had oh my gosh, it just goes on forever. It's so exciting. I'll, take that down for now. But yeah, you've seen across the banner and in the show notes will be all the links. Go check out the portfolio. Look, you can take 25K and put it into your 401 account. Absolutely. Or you can take it and deploy it quarterly into this incredible fund where that someone, if you've heard Lisa's story, she's got a fine eye for what companies are going to do and how they're going to profit. She already has a great track record after 16 months. Go ahead.
The only way you can predict the future is to build it, and we
Yes.
are. And investing in the companies that we're connecting through Refashioned OS.
There you go. That's it. 100%. Oh my gosh. Lisa, I am so grateful that you took time out to join us today and share your remarkable story. Throughout the conversation, you have shared how you have always stayed open to possibilities, tenacious, resilient, hopeful, confident. What is it? What kind of mindset do you have? That a hack perhaps that others could tap into, because you are a diverse founder. You are female. You're in the tech industry. What has helped you get up every day and still go forward in spite of biases that you have faced? Not if, you have faced them, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
have faced them down, both bias on the fact that you are a Latina, but also bias on the fact that you are way out on the horizon. What mindset hack has worked the best for you?
I think really that you need to find your people. Um, Everything changes when you are surrounded by people that see your value and want to amplify you. And for a lot of my career, I wasn't blessed with that. I had a lot of people that saw my value and wanted to extract and exploit it, and keep me in place. Wait your turn. And if you're getting that, you're surrounded by the wrong people. Run away and find your people. These are not necessarily people that look like you or that the same, ethnicity or whatever. They just are the people you can recognize when they instantly have a connection and want to lean in and amplify you rather than question and cut you down and try to find flaws.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's such good advice. Oh my gosh, because yeah, someone as talented as you and a clear revenue generator, you'd have to be very careful about not being exploited. Just
Mhm.
saying. And of course, what you said, wait your turn. How many have you, diverse founders? This is what this show is all about. How many times have you heard that? No, no,
Mhm.
no, no, no. We'll have
Yeah.
none of that. But easier said than done. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for your time. You are extraordinary. We're going to love watching you continue to grow and glow and create incredible change. I am so happy you're out there in the world doing this for us. Any last words for founders who are tuning in and folks tuning in before I pop you in the green room?
I would say that, just figure out what you're obsessed with and weave it into your career. Don't let your career happen to you. You are you should be the captain of your own destiny. And so many people sit back and wait for their career to happen to them. It's not going to happen the way you want it to just by hoping and wishing. So
Oh,
take control and focus on what you love and build your career around it.
thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your vision. I'm so honored to know you. I'm so excited for everyone to hear this wonderful story. And I'm just so thrilled for everything that you're doing and deeply grateful. Thank you, Lisa, for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Oh my gosh, everyone. I don't know how I am just so inspired. And yeah, I think as Ruth grabbed here, only way to predict the future is to build it. We got so many great, great comments and insights from this remarkable woman. Really, we are all blessed to have had this time with Lisa Morales-Hellebo. Let me share with you who's coming up next on the Startup Life Live show. It's Dr. Shanna M. Scott. And Dr. Shanna has fine tuned the art of event planning with her business, Shanna Scott PR and Events, removing the stress and effort from her clients' shoulders. And she's been at this for 18 years, and her team and she have produced luxury, lifestyle, and transformational events and messaging that leave their clients delighted from the experience and thrilled with the results. We're going to have a delicious conversation with her. And how do you know when I post a new show? You hop on over and you join the Startup Life Live meetup group. That way you get an alert as to who's going to be on the Startup Life Live show, because I'm telling you, you know that you grabbed some gems today from Lisa's journey and that you can apply to your startup. So thank you. Thank you. Please promise me that you'll always remember you're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem. And as we say here in Boston, you're wicked smarter than you think. Keep going. You've got this. I believe in you. And I'll see you next time on the Startup Life Live show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Mwah! Wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow.